Jay, I did something wrong.
It's broken.
I hit the button to record and it went away.
Hi, y'all. Welcome to Hustle Humbly. It's Alissa and Katy, and we are two top producing realtors in the Baton Rouge market.
We work for two different companies where we should be competitors, but we have chosen community over competition.
The goal of our podcast is to encourage you to find your own way in business.
So stop comparing yourself and start embracing your strengths.
Okay, this is episode 28. Let's talk appraisals.
Yeah, we're going to talk about appraisals.
I, Alissa, have my dad here, and he is a residential real estate appraiser. Why don't you really quickly introduce yourself and tell us how you came to be an appraiser?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my name is Johnny Alphin, and I've been an appraiser since about 1978, 1980, over 40 years now.
Wow.
How old were you when you started?
I was just finishing college, so I was probably 21, 22 when I started just getting started and looking into doing appraisals.
And you went to college?
Yes, I went to college. There was one course in college. It was an appraisal course. And Clifford Drouin, which is one of the masters of appraisers back in the day, he taught the course. And I fell in love with the concept of doing an appraisal. We actually got to appraise a small apartment building near LSU, and we appraised an old house, an older house. And we actually got to go out there and gather the data, look at the properties, do an apartment complex and a house. And I just love the way everything just meshes, especially on the income side on an apartment complex, looking at the rents and then you look at the sales of other apartment complexes, and then you do a cost approach and how all those numbers came together and supported each other. And then we got to go look at an old house near LSU. It was actually on LSU Avenue, and going through one of those old houses, which just, I love the old houses.
Yeah.
The old pier and beam, all the craftsmen, the work that they did back in the 30s and 40s, basically without power tools.
Yeah.
And the trim and the craftsmanship in those old houses. And today, that's what makes them so popular. But anyway, that's my only course that LSU offered. I took it and just really liked it. Now, coincidentally, my dad, who was just coming out of the service in 1955-ish, I guess, which is about the year I was born. He came out of the service, married, baby on the way, had no job. He didn't have any plans at that point. He got his realtor's license back then, and he was trying to sell real estate. His father was a realtor.
Wow.
That's why she's fourth or fifth generation.
It's in her blood.
It's in my blood.
So with that, he tried to sell real estate, wasn't real successful. Just back in the day, it was just a whole different world.
Yeah.
So he got contacted by the VA back coming out, being a veteran, and they were needing appraisers to appraise properties for loan mortgages. So they contacted him, said, we need appraisers. Can you do that? And he said, sure. Yeah, I'm in.
I can do anything you'll pay me to do.
And he said, okay. And they actually assigned him. He was the first VA appraiser on their panel. His appraiser number is 001.
Stop.
I'm 097. So there've been 97 appraisers added to the panel. Now, this is just the southeast region, the Houston region.
Yeah.
But he is appraiser number 001.
That is so cool.
So he would just go out and look at a house, and then I don't know how he did. They didn't have MLS back then. He would go to the courthouse and pull sales data out of the courthouse. It was a one-page handwritten form that you wrote the little description of the property, put some sales in there, and came up with a number.
That's fascinating.
Anyway. So that's what he did, and then I came along. My sister came along, and as I finished in college, by then he had an insurance. He was in the insurance business as well as did appraisals. Still doing VA work. He did also a lot of work for the DOTD on right-of-way acquisition work. And after I got out of college and said, I kind of like this appraisal stuff. He said, no, you don't want to be an appraiser. I want you to be, you need to be a lawyer. I said, I don't want to be a lawyer. I said, there are too many lawyers out there. There's not many appraisers. I really enjoyed the appraisal work that I did in that class, and I kind of want to do that. And so I kind of started the same thing. Back then, they didn't have regulations. They didn't have licensing.
Right.
are an appraiser.
Yeah,
right.
So I actually went out and did appraisals on houses. I'd call friends. I'd say, can I come appraise your house? And I'd go measure it. I would put together reports, and then I would contact clients and say, look, I want to get on your panel, banks.
Right. Sure.
And I would send them samples of my work.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started taking all the appraisal courses that the Appraisal Institute offered at the time. They were like 2 weeks. You went away for like 2 weeks
Wow.
and took courses, pretty intensive, just the basic
Wow.
principles. I did that for about 3 or 4 months, taking appraisal
Wow.
courses, and just kind of started doing work for banks.
So you had to like hustle to get on certain banks' lists.
Yes, that was always a challenge. You had to be approved by the lender. You also had to be approved by Fannie Mae. You had to send all your credentials to Fannie Mae once you start doing appraisals, and they would basically get you a Fannie Mae number, and you were an approved Fannie Mae appraiser. Same with FHA, same with VA. You have your FHA approval and your VA approval. So I was approved by all the major, the Fannie Mae, FHA.
And those are banks that you've been with.
Yeah, they've
for
changed hands
years.
over the years.
Right.
Some come and go, but there's somebody always comes along and takes their place.
Was that something that, like a wine and dine situation? Like you had to market to them? Like how did you?
We brought them popcorn at Christmas.
We did. I bribed them with popcorn every Christmas. I think she told you that story once before on one of her podcasts. We would load up the kids, and I'd get
love
these
it.
big old tins of popcorn, like 30 of them.
You were doing Popeyes.
Yeah, we were.
And we would ride around and just drop them off, and they loved it. But yeah, back then the banks got to choose their own appraiser.
Right.
The realtors pretty much got to choose their own appraiser.
So
They
you
say,
would market to realtors
yeah,
as well.
I went to a lot of realtor lunches back in the day, and I kind of
You don't need to anymore.
can't even talk to the realtors.
Just leave them alone.
Yeah.
Just
Which
stay
is
away.
really works best for us.
I can remember sitting in his office with a glue stick, and because he would have to take his comp pictures on a camera with film,
Right.
get the film developed, glue the
Onto the
pictures
report.
onto the paper,
I love it.
and we would just glue them.
We have to
Okay.
make everything in triplicate. So
That's
it was
so
every appraisal
right.
was typed on a typewriter
Oh,
with
my
carbon
word.
paper,
Oh,
and we had to stick the pictures on
Love it.
the appraisal. But back then you had 3 pictures. You had a front, a rear, and a street scene. Now they want pictures of all your comparables. They want interior pictures.
Right.
We usually have about 30 pictures in every report.
Per
now.
report.
Yeah.
Okay, real quick before we move on. Did we even discuss that you are Alyssa's dad?
Did
She
I
did
say
say
that?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think you did. Okay, good.
Yes.
Tell us, before we ask you all these hard-hitting appraiser questions,
Okay.
tell us a little bit about Alissa as a kid.
Oh man,
People are going to like that.
oh man.
Sell her out.
Well, Alissa was always very motivated to make an impression.
Uh-huh.
She always wanted to be recognized for the things she did. She was always coming up with ideas of how to get things done.
Uh-huh.
Quick example, she wanted a dog one day. She wanted a, what was it?
A greyhound.
A greyhound.
I wanted to rescue a greyhound that had been retired.
Oh, from the races.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she puts together, back in the day, didn't have PowerPoints, but she put together one of those,
my.
Those big
Foldable
cardboard,
posters.
foldable,
Mhm.
and she made pictures of greyhounds
Yes.
being rescued and how good a pet,
Oh.
and she did all
And
this.
what happens if you don't rescue
Yeah,
them?
and
Oh.
how they were.
Did you get a greyhound?
Well, we
No.
didn't get
No.
a greyhound. It didn't
I don't
work.
know why either.
Well,
The report didn't work.
it didn't work.
It didn't
We
work.
did get a dog eventually, but it wasn't a greyhound. But,
Oh, that's so great.
she was, she could present things like that, and it was very impressive. The thing.
That's not a good example because I lost.
Well,
No,
you
that's
don't
a great
win
example.
everything.
Look, but I'm sure you're not
you don't
surprised.
get every listing, right?
Right,
Right,
right.
that's
You can't
true.
get them all.
But
Surely you're not surprised by how successful
oh,
she is.
absolutely not. I knew she was always
Like, that's
gonna do-
inborn.
Yeah, I always knew she was going to do well. She always was a super achiever in school,
Yeah,
and always wanted to achieve.
that's so cool.
She wanted it. So.
Very good. We
Well,
love it.
when I was in college, that's when my grandfather passed away. And he was getting swamped with all the VA work. And I was like, don't worry, I'll get my appraiser's license and help you.
Right.
Well, I went to go get it, and you can't just go get it.
Yeah,
like,
Not anymore.
not
No.
anymore. And I was in undergrad, so you had to have a college degree.
Right.
And so I couldn't become an appraiser. So I was like, I'll just get my real estate license to have access to MLS,
Yeah, and then
and
you
I'll
could-
help you.
Yeah.
And then I'll be honest, and he knows, there was a point where I was like, am I supposed to take over off an agency? Like, this was his dad's, and it was like your dad's mom's?
No, just
some of it?
No, it wasn't my dad. No, it was just
your dad's.
my grandfather. It actually started in 1928. Which was when off an agency started by my grandfather.
Yeah.
And then my dad, and then me.
Right. Okay. You're like, is this my path?
Right. Like, am I supposed to do this? I was kind of feeling the pressure, but I'll tell you, like, it's not my thing.
Appraising is not where it's at.
And me and my dad have a great relationship, but, like, when it comes to, like, measuring houses and being tedious in the details, and he's like, Alissa, you can't estimate, you can't guess. But I just felt like pressure, like, maybe I should want this because my two sisters became nurses, so they're not interested in real estate.
Right.
But then I started doing well on the sales side, and I was like, I think I'm just supposed to be a realtor.
Right.
And then my middle sister, who is like so meticulous and sweet and attention to details, and she's very soft-spoken, and she just came to me one day. She had been a nurse, and she said, you know, Alissa, I work 3 12s a week, and that's full-time as a nurse.
Right.
I really enjoy like the appraisal side of things, but I don't want to step on your toes if that's like you and Dad's thing.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my gosh.
Are you going to do this?
Yeah. So now she is working with him.
Yeah, she's in her 3rd year as an appraisal trainee.
Yeah.
Wow.
Year 3 as a trainee.
Okay.
So let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
Like barriers to entry, because to be a realtor, you could be a realtor in 2 weeks if you really wanted to.
I have always said that realtors should function more like appraisers, in that they should have to shadow someone and be an apprentice. I'm very annoyed that we do not have that. And anybody, this goes really well with the episode about how to get started. I wish that you were forced to follow someone, but you're not. You really can do whatever you want. But you tell us what appraisers have to do these days.
Okay, well, first of all, you have to become a trainee. Even that's not the easiest thing. I was looking, I've got some papers here that kind of
take
describe
your time.
it. Yeah.
Find those papers.
No, just looking at it, to become an appraiser trainee, you have to have 75 hours of education courses that are offered by the Appraisal Foundation Board or whoever.
So that's, you could do that online.
You can do that online or in classes. And then you have to take 30 hours of other courses involving the USPAP, which is the Standards of Appraisal.
Okay.
Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice. Then once you become a trainee, then you have to actually go to work for another appraiser. That's about the only way you can possibly get the experience.
And things get sticky here.
Yeah, it gets
because
sticky.
You're basically training your competition.
Yes, you're training your competition.
And sometimes they want to be paid for it too.
Yeah, they typically, because you have to do.
The trainee, it takes 3 years as a trainee.
Right.
And they want to be paid. That's fair, I think.
Well,
3 years is a long time to go without being paid.
It is, but as an appraiser, I'm sitting there, I'm taking my time to train them, which is taking me longer to get things done. And it's hard to pay somebody because they're not really contributing anything to your income.
Yes.
They're basically
taking
from your time.
And then when they're done, they go
and
get a piece of your business.
They take your clients and say, thank you, we're gone.
This system may be flawed.
Yeah.
But no, and the reason why I've never had a trainee in all my years is because I've always been a one-man shop.
Right.
And I always like working by myself in my office, not having to supervise somebody.
Yeah.
It's if I had there's some appraisers out there that have 8 or 10 appraisers in
like
their
a bigger
shop,
firm,
and they can bring in a trainee and have somebody kind of
because they could potentially keep them,
and they can keep them on their staff, like that, which it just doesn't happen when you're.
That's not your business model.
That's not. Yeah, I'm just a one-man shop. I've been that way. People say, back in the day when I was working, we talked about. I saw your question. What is hustle? Talking about hustling back in the day, we were working literally 18-hour days, 6 to 7 days a week, because I had to, because
the business was good.
The business was good, and had a lot of expenses, a lot more expenses back then than we do now. Had 3 kids in private school.
Well,
so.
right. Yeah,
but
gotta make the money.
And so if there's just no way you can bring a trainee along and do that kind of thing.
So in that 3 years that they're a trainee, they have to document.
They have to have, first of all, again, you have to have a college degree.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have 200 hours of a core curriculum courses that the Appraisal Foundation Board offers, or that
In
are
addition to the
approved.
75, in
Right.
addition
These are
to
after
the
you got
30.
your 75 for
Right.
being a
Okay,
trainer.
so now you're a trainee. You have
have to
200.
200 hours of courses to take, and you have to have what is it? 1,500 hours of appraisal experience,
Whoa.
which is just. And the way to document that is like, for example, Lacey, my daughter's working with me as a trainee, and we go out and look at a house together. She helps me measure it. I let her kind of do her thing. I kind of do my thing. We kind of compare notes at the end. And she gets, for every appraisal that she's able to help me with, she gets so many hours credit for that. And she keeps a record of those.
And
so,
you have to write like the address, what type of loan it was it a refinance, what bank, what you did at that house, and how many hours it took you.
How many hours for that particular, you
I
have
mean,
to document everything.
It's pretty serious.
Yeah,
so,
it's very serious.
And you have to, some people it takes them, luckily I have a tremendous amount of volume to where she's getting a lot of experience.
Yeah, quickly.
But in some appraisers that work in like the rural areas that don't have that much, it's hard to get the experience.
It would take more than 3 years to get that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, 1,500 hours. If you look at that's almost like 1,500 appraisals. That's 500 a year, which
right.
That's
a lot.
That's a lot of appraisals.
Whoa.
So
that's a lot of appraisals.
Yeah. So and then after you do that, you have to take an exam, and then once you do that, you're done. Now, when appraiser licensing first came out, when I was taking it, which was in 1989, I believe. Basically, all I had to do was take a test because I had all the hours already. I'd been appraising already for 20 years.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
So I didn't have to do anything but take it.
Because it didn't really exist.
Right.
In that fashion. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have to, I had to document, I had to give them my client list, reference, I had to give them sample appraisals.
Yeah, you'd already been practicing.
But so back then it was very easy. You just had to take the exam.
Do you think they will, I mean, this is kind of speculation, but the college degree part of that, I mean, do you find that's important to?
Well, it says a college degree in any curriculum. So, I mean, you can get your,
right,
you get,
that's sort of my point.
Yeah,
so why does your degree in English
or
make
science.
you a good appraiser?
So if you get your bachelor's degree in arts and sciences, I don't know if that's going to make you a good appraiser, but I guess it's, I think that's something that they're probably going to loosen up on because there are not many appraisers applying right now. There's been a lot of change in the industry. Now, there were a lot when it first came out. In fact, there's probably, I don't know the number now, but I've seen like my appraiser number, my license number is number 53. I was the 53rd appraiser to be certified, to be licensed.
Wow.
I've seen numbers as high as 1,500, 1,600, so there's a lot.
And that's in this region?
That's in Louisiana.
And just in Louisiana, okay.
Probably in Baton Rouge, I did a list the other day. I think I saw like 150 names.
That's a lot.
Yeah, but a lot of
we could probably name 8.
Right, we see the same ones.
We see the same ones.
I looked at all of them on the list, and I could probably only recognize maybe 20.
Okay.
And some of the Lacey was on that list as a trainee, so it's anybody that has
anybody.
So and some of them were commercial people, but a lot of people. I don't even like I'm a licensed realtor for 40 years. I've never even had a listing.
Right.
Still waiting to get that first listing.
I can't wait to hear what happens. I can't wait.
I take them all now.
I know, right? It's not fair.
Yeah, she's costing me some money now too.
Because if he gets a appraisal request and I'm the listing or the buyer's agent, he has to decline it.
Well, I would say that's a conflict. Good news, you're not on my bad list.
Well, that's
because it's pretty long. Okay. I don't know if we'll get to that, but how do you feel about that? Appraisers aren't exactly beloved in the industry.
Yeah, well, there's some that are less liked than others.
Oh, true story.
But there's also some that will go the extra mile to help the realtors, and I feel like I'm one of those guys.
I think that's good.
I will call a realtor if I'm looking at a property, and I'll ask them. I think that some of the questions y'all are going to ask is, are there any comparables that you want me to look at in your neighborhood? Not that I can use them, not that it's going to affect my value, but I don't want to miss anything that maybe you have because I never turn down information.
That's good.
If a realtor will meet me out at the house sometimes and say, I brought a list of comparables. I said, well, that's great. I'm going to, I can't say I'll use them.
Right.
But you're allowed to use them if they work.
Yes.
They may have already been ones that you pulled.
I don't go into any discussion about value. I don't go to any discussion. I'll use these comparables.
Yeah.
I just take them. I say, thank you.
Right.
I said, I will give them consideration.
I think that's good.
That's as far as I can go.
Yeah.
Because I can't discuss the value with the realtor. I can't discuss it with the homeowner.
Right.
You're just not allowed to do that. It's part of the process. So, but I never turn down information that somebody offers.
Okay. And I think that was the first question from a listener. do you appreciate taking into consideration the comps a listing agent provides?
Yes,
so you
absolutely.
do.
I do. I take into account.
Do you think that's common practice in your industry? Or maybe?
Some people will tell you. I mean, I can't speak for all the other appraisers, but in your experience, you say I've got some comparables. They'll like, I don't.
Thanks. I've never had someone say no.
Yeah, nobody. They're not going.
I've just had them say thanks for the information.
Yeah, they're not going to.
So it's nice if it's like nicely left on the counter or handed to you, and then we leave you alone. But it's not good to just follow you.
Oh no! Please don't follow us around.
Some agents do come to the appraisal.
Yes.
And then like harass you.
No, just I'd say maybe 1 out of 50 houses.
Someone shows up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now a lot of times the homeowner is there. Now the homeowner will take you around the house,
tell you stuff,
and tell you
say,
stuff
"Look at my
like,
new toilet.
This is the bathroom." I say, "Okay, thank you."
This is the bathroom.
Check.
And
Got
I'm
that
trying
on
to
my
go
list.
this way, and they're trying to pull me this way.
Oh, right.
It's a little distracting having the homeowner there. I don't mind having them there sitting in the kitchen, but following me around and just talking to me the whole time, it is.
Well, it's hard enough to measure a house,
and you're
keep
trying
it
to
all
walk
square.
through. Some of these houses are really difficult to draw a floor plan when
I
you're
can
walking
imagine.
through some of these 4,000 or 5,000 square foot houses.
That
are, and you're trying to document everything. It's hard to concentrate sometimes when they're right there in your ear.
Do you have? Well, speaking of like doing the floor, do you use any kind of technology now that obviously you didn't years ago?
Your laser
My
measurer.
laser pointer.
I made him get
Alissa
onto
got
that.
me, which I'm surprised I haven't used yet for years. But basically, I use the old tape measure.
Yeah.
To do the outside walls. I use a laser whenever it can be used to shoot.
Yeah.
It's really good for measuring second floors because you don't really have anything to hook on the tape. So you're measuring kind of interior rooms.
Sure.
You have to add for wall thickness to get rid of it. So it's comes in very handy, and especially when you're trying to shoot an area where you got a lot of obstacles in the way that you got to shoot over. It's
he didn't trust the laser at first, and so for like 10 houses, he would measure it with the laser and the tape measure.
And it turned out
and finally he was like,
spot on.
It was spot on. I recommend.
I'm so proud of that laser.
It's just one more little thing you got to carry with you because I had to carry.
But I know we've tried the softwares before where you like draw it on your iPad, and it just doesn't.
Yeah, I've never tried that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You can't go backwards. So if you need to go back and edit something, you have to delete pretty much everything, and then it deletes the whole thing. And at the end, if it doesn't connect, you have a problem.
I see.
So I draw it on a graph paper, I measure it, and then I get back to my office, and I have a program that I draw it on the program, and it computes the square footages. It puts all my room dimensions and everything in there for me.
Right. So, well, that's nice.
Yeah. That's been big help.
All right, Hustle Humbly friends. You asked.
You have asked.
Big news. Been asking.
You've been asking.
And so we're going to do it. We are going to sell our email templates.
Hooray!
Yay!
This is big news coming in March. We don't have a date yet, but it is coming in March, and you guys are going to love it. And maybe if you're like me, you can fire your assistant.
Yeah. As quickly as we can get it done and ready for you, you will be able to purchase it.
That's right.
We've just had a lot of email requests asking for it.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a waiting list.
Agree, yes.
If you would like to be on the waiting list, you can email us at hustlehumblypodcast @gmail.com.
Yes.
And you will be notified when it is ready for sale.
Love it.
But it will be in March.
Yes.
Okay, anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
So we had someone say, "What's the best thing a realtor can do to help you get the value?"
Get the value.
Get the value.
Well,
we're gonna need you to get that value.
Yeah. And one of the biggest things that it's kind of a pet peeve of mine is when they say, "Well, you're going to have to leave the neighborhood for sales because the sales in the neighborhood don't support the value." And I say,
and you're like, red flag.
And again, red flag. But I don't say I will do that. I can't do that. I just say I will take that in consideration.
Okay.
That is my standard line.
Is there something that a realtor could do to help you?
List of upgrades?
Any list of upgrades they've done, especially if the homeowner's not there and able to just
tell you what they are. Yeah.
Yeah, and we go by kind of year. What have you done in the past 5 years? That's the biggest thing.
Oh, that's a good tip.
Kitchen.
So when they say the roof is 15 years new,
doesn't matter.
Right.
Okay.
So 5-year upgrades.
5-year upgrades is the biggest thing. You know.
Okay.
Because in the appraisal report, it actually asks you, was the kitchen updated 1 to 5 years,
Oh,
5 to 10 years.
It gives you
or 10,
amounts.
it gives you
Okay.
ranges. Same with the bathroom. Kitchen and bathrooms, on the appraisal report, those are the two things that they specifically ask you.
They'll give you some value for that.
Yeah.
And that's good because we're always hard on our sellers with kitchen and bathroom.
Well, that's the two biggest,
Right.
probably two biggest ticket items that help improve the value.
That help the value. So there was someone that asked how much value, and this wasn't in your list, so how much value do you give to certain upgrades to adjust comps? But I guess my question too is I always have that seller with the $25,000 patio edition, and I'm like, well, it's just a roof.
Yeah, right.
And some concrete.
Right.
While I appreciate that was very expensive for you to do, I don't know that an appraiser is going to give you that value.
Exactly. And to almost every question that you ask on that regard, the answer is going to be it depends.
It depends.
It depends on the quality of the addition. It depends on the neighborhood.
Right.
And it's not. This is not a.
It's not like a rule.
Yeah, it's not a rule. You get $2,000 for this. You get 10% for that. You look at the neighborhood. You look at maybe a sale of the way we make adjustments is we look at what homes have sold far that have this feature versus homes that don't have the feature.
Okay.
That's basically how we value a swimming pool.
Right.
If you have two houses that are side by side, and they say they're very similar in all respects, one has a pool, one doesn't. One house sells for $200,000 and one house sells for $210,000, and the one with $210,000 has a pool.
Right.
That pool is worth $10,000.
Right.
That's a simple way of valuing that pool.
And that's like the definition of comparable sale analysis.
Right. It's called paired sales analysis. It's called paired sales analysis. That's where we get our adjustments from.
Okay.
So it all depends on what
the
has
neighborhood.
recently
You
sold.
might see the house with the pool selling for $10,000 less.
Right.
Meaning that pool has a negative value.
Oh, how does that happen?
Well, if you're in a neighborhood,
an old liner.
You're in an old neighborhood that people say, I don't want that
they
pool.
Don't want it.
It's an expense to maintain a pool.
Okay.
So it may be in a neighborhood where the homes are $120,000. You don't want to.
You don't need it. Right. You don't want a pool.
Yeah. So a pool can have a negative effect. And again, the type of pool it is, if it's maybe needing repair or something like that. But today,
or if you find 3 comps that all have pools, you don't necessarily get a bonus.
I've seen where I look at 3 comps. Well, these are all pretty similar homes. Wait, 2 of them had pools, but they still sold for the same price as the other 2.
One.
So they're telling you the pool has no value.
The pool has. Boy, sellers aren't going to want to hear that.
No, they aren't. And you'd be amazed how many sellers realize that. I praise the pool. They walk in there, the pool doesn't have any value, does it? I said it depends.
Right, it depends. Okay,
it depends.
I mean, would you say that appraising is somewhat subjective?
It is very subjective, although I try to stay as objective as I can.
Right.
Because I walk into a house and I see some weird things, colors.
Okay.
And I try to go, well, I'm not going to let that bright orange or that pink.
Right. Well, paint doesn't affect you.
Right. It doesn't. But it is very subjective as far as looking at. There's 10 comparables. I'm going to pick 3 comparables to go in my report. Surely.
Yeah.
But I try to pick the 3 most similar comparables to my property.
So you're going to pick the other ones that had ugly paint.
Right.
If they're available.
And those probably sold for less because buyers can't see past the ugly paint.
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But yeah, and having the interior pictures of the comparables is really beneficial because we can kind of look at how other houses look on the inside when they were listed. So it is. I do look at all the interior pictures on my comparables
to see what's
try to compare
most similar.
The most similar to the house I'm appraising.
I could have written 100 questions for you. I just want you to know that. But because I'm fascinated, by the whole process and disenchanted by most of it, what I was going to say is, would you say that I'm wrong in saying some appraisers are more conservative than others? Or do you find that everyone is an equal level of objective? And I know you can't speak to every appraiser out there, but I just know that when I see some names, I'm like, uh-oh. And when I see other names, I'm like, okay.
I don't get that end of it because
you don't know.
I don't see their work.
Right.
Now, I have to admit there are some appraisers that have the reputation of just, you don't want him. Yeah, you don't want
him.
He's going to look at every little thing to make the deal sour. But I've never, it's been a long time since I've heard that.
It's
Yeah.
tough because you could have 5 appraisals done on one property and they may all be different.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
You could
But
have,
hopefully within a range,
yeah,
a tight
hopefully
range.
they're going to be tight range. And I used to do a lot of relocation work where you had 2 appraisals done on the same
Oh,
house.
right.
And they would,
Do they tell you the difference?
typically they don't.
They don't. So
They
you don't actually know.
But no, but
It's very
you got to
interesting.
realize if you have another appraiser, you're going to be trying to.
Well, right. You're human.
Yeah.
So
So,
you see things differently
I mean,
sometimes.
and again, it comes to measuring a house. I can measure probably a house 3 different times and come up with slightly different
Yeah.
square footage depending on how tight you're pulling the
Rounding,
tape
yeah.
and rounding. And the more complicated the house is, the
Mhm.
bigger variance you can
Yeah.
have on square footage. I do see a lot of errors in MLS on square footage.
Yeah, let's talk
Sure.
about that. So we had someone ask, like, what can realtors do to help the appraisers? What do we do that complicates your job?
Yeah. What do we do? Not well?
Help us help you.
Well, what really helps is when y'all do a sale in
Mhm.
MLS, be as specific as you can. I know you're trying to sell the house in MLS. I'm trying to really make it
Fluffy.
fluffy.
Right.
But try to be as realistic as you. And putting in the pictures is great. The interior pictures
Mhm.
really helps. Front, back, seeing all the extra stuff in the back.
Especially he means too, like the ones that we sold that were before listing.
Right. So, sold
And
before
sometimes-
processing.
Yeah,
sold
sold for
before
processing.
processing.
We see it looks like a good sale, but there's zero information.
Right. So no photos.
No
So they can't even
photos,
really
no
use
description.
it.
No description
I
of
know.
what it was. Was it updated? Was it?
Right.
Sometimes they don't even have if it's got a carport or a
Oh
garage or
no.
whatever. But
So you can't use that at all.
I
really.
can't. I call the agent on that.
You do.
Yes, and I
Well,
say,
that's
look,
above and beyond. I bet.
well, that is.
Mm-hmm.
So I will call the agent. I said, look, you sold this house. Tell me, but was it? You've already got it sold, so you
Right,
don't got
you
to
just
fluff
tell me
it.
the truth,
Yeah,
right.
just,
Yeah.
and so,
How
but-
was it?
Yeah, and they'll say,
Just the
well,
facts,
it's really
ma'am.
kind of a dog. It
Yeah.
it needed updating.
Right.
Even though I wouldn't have said that in the listing.
Yeah.
But she.
Don't you wish descriptions were written how it is?
Oh, that would be so
It's a
great.
dog.
We need to do like a funny episode on like if it was really
the real
Yeah,
descriptions.
tell me.
Oh
I
yeah.
think my.
Oh,
cord
that's
fell out.
fine.
Okay,
Mm-mm,
all
You're
right.
fine.
Okay.
Oh, that's so funny.
So,
That
but
is
but
funny.
again, realtors helping by, first of all, filling out information on homes that they've sold. But as
Right.
far as the specific house that we're appraising, again, I'll be happy to look at comparables, anything you have, a list of upgrades they've done to the house. Again, we look at all that.
You mentioned too that y'all have had trouble with the higher end luxury homes not being recorded properly because of privacy.
Yeah, that's a big issue right now, especially there's not a lot of sales of the upper end homes
Yeah.
right now because there's kind of an oversupply.
Way oversupply.
And we say, we see a house that's sold, and we look on it, and it's $10. I'm going,
Right.
okay.
Sold for $10.
Plus OBC. So I know the people want their privacy, but
Right.
it's a sale that we can't use.
Yeah.
And it's probably one of the best sales we need because
Yeah.
it's high
And it
enough.
seems long term that would hurt the property value of the luxury market because there's not
Right. But yeah, we're
accurate
we're
comps.
not. Yeah, we don't have the, and that's probably the people didn't want their recorder. They didn't want to see how much they got for their house. So they probably got a lot for. So it's
They
probably
pro-
a
yeah,
very
they probably
good.
did all right.
It's a good comparable.
I
So
know. That's unfortunate.
and we've seen kind of a trend of that starting now.
Yeah.
I've seen probably
Ugh.
5 or 6 in the last year, and there's not maybe 10 or 12
that sell altogether.
Right. So
Oh, I know.
that is something if you can stress to your higher end buyers that it's just nobody's really going to care. I mean, nobody's
Yeah.
going to be looking at this other than professionals,
Right.
appraisers,
Yeah.
and it's going to stay confidential with
Mhm.
them. We're not going to be putting it on a billboard or
Right.
so just
Yeah.
So why do appraisers need a copy of the purchase agreement? It seems like a non-biased opinion would be better.
Well, first of all, it's not the appraiser that requires it. It's actually USPAP, the people that made the rules on appraising.
On lending
And I'll give you an example. It says this is a USPAP book. It's about
wow.
a
You brought his
250. Brought my boy on to read it.
a big book.
It says when the value opinion to be developed is market value, an appraiser must analyze all agreements of sale, options, and listings of the property as of the effective date of the appraisal. So we are required by
Uh-huh.
our regulations to get a copy of the sales contract.
It makes sense when you say it that way.
Again, a sales contract is relevant because it tells you that somebody is willing to pay that for the property. Now, whether that's the market value.
Does that get some sort of weight in your report?
It doesn't really give weight. It just tells me that somebody's willing to pay that. So, yeah, in effect.
That somewhere a buyer and seller agreed on this price.
Well, that leads into, this is sort of perfect with that. If there were multiple offers on a property, does that play in? So now
multiple
you have
offers
the purchase
are
agreement.
much more significant than having a single offer.
Okay.
Because according to the definition of market value, market value simply, in very simple terms, what is the most likely price that property will sell for if exposed on the open market and you have a informed buyer and informed seller. Now, if you got 3 offers, say at $300,000 on the same property, one might be a cash offer, and I'm appraising it and I'm seeing, well, my comparables are only looking at $290. I don't understand why you got, and so I say I appraise it for $290. Well, my buyer is going to lose out on the house because his deal is going to go away. The next buyer is going to step up. He's got a $300,000 offer. His may or may not have appraised. If it doesn't, his offer is going away. So then you got the cash buyer coming up. He's going to get his deal because he's paying cash. So the most likely price that property to sell for is $300,000, which is a definition of market value.
Okay.
So that is why the multiple offers are very important, but they have to be realistic. I mean, I've had realtors, we have 5 offers on this house for overpriced. I said, can you send me those? Well, we don't have them in writing. I said, you know.
Y'all want to see them if there's multiple.
Yeah, I want to see it, what they are, and that tells me that.
Okay.
Because what if you got one for $300 and 2 for $250?
Yeah, right.
Multiple offers.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And
so y'all would actually want to see the documentation.
I would want to see the documentation because, and again, there's something I might be missing in that house. And again, it doesn't happen very often, but I will actually call an agent and say, look, there are a couple of houses that are listed in the neighborhood that are less. Why are these people paying $300 for this one?
Right.
And she'll say, well, you know, the backyard had this wonderful backyard, had this things that I saw, but I didn't really equate to value. You know, because I'm more of an objective numbers guy.
But the buyer gave it value.
The buyer gave value, and multiple buyers gave it value. So, if that's the case, then there's probably a reason to try to get that, you know, give them value for what they're seeing. So, but it's one offer doesn't always do it.
Okay.
But multiple offers are very important. So if you do have multiple offers and they're documented and they're above sale price or you know, I've seen properties sell for more than they're listed for because they were bid up. They were bid up by multiple offers.
That's one of them on here, and that'll go off of that. Do you ever appraise? Now, I was around before the crash, so I got my license in 2005.
Okay.
So I remember when they drove by and was like, check, you're good. roll on. Everything's fine. That house is there.
Right, exactly.
You want to buy it for $300? Go on, do it.
Right.
So I know the difference. I know the pendulum, like where we've gone.
Right.
But my question is, do you ever currently appraise? Let's say you look at all the comps and you find the best ones and you're like, dang, I mean, this house is worth $20,000 more than what.
That happens.
Do you put that number on the report?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I appraise it for what I think it's worth.
What you think it's worth.
What I think it's worth.
Okay.
And that happens in a case where you've got a unique house.
Sure.
That maybe been on the market for like a day.
Right.
And you take the first offer.
Right.
And you're in a neighborhood where the typical house sits on the market for 3 to 6 months. And all of a sudden it's on the market one day and they've got 3 offers. It was probably underpriced.
Yeah.
So it's
does the bank ever kick that back to you? They are fine.
As long as I mean, they don't care what my value is as far as in relation to the sale price. They don't care. They don't argue with
What
that.
kind of things will a bank kick it back?
I have very few appraisals kick back. The reason why I've been doing this for so long, I know what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And if there's something in an appraisal that needs explaining, I write a narrative explaining that. Anything I feel that might confuse somebody in an appraisal, why did he do this? I explain
You're
it.
preemptively
Like what kind of things? Like using comps farther away?
Yeah, sometimes going back over 6 months for comparables. And I'll go, well, the bank will send me a thing. If you don't make any explanation, they'll say, why are you using comparables over 6 months old? So, well, I'm appraising, say, in your subdivision here, and there are no comparables within 6 months.
Yeah.
And there are really no subdivisions that are comparable that are within
that are nearby. Yeah.
So it's, and I'll put it in, and I'll explain that, and I'll say it's better to go back 6 months and stay in your neighborhood
Yeah.
and use similar sales
Right.
with similar location than to try to go to, Country Club, Louisiana, or go to Santa Maria
Right.
to compare it to maybe a non-competitive location
Yeah.
simply to get more current sales.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, and I put that
So
in
they
there.
really kick back mostly on going back longer than 6 months or going outside
The
of
Going
the
outside this, or
area.
making adjustments for such things as, say you got a house that doesn't have upgrades. Your house has upgrades that you're appraising. 2 of your comparables have not been upgraded, and you
Mhm.
make an adjustment for condition or a quality adjustment for those comps.
Right.
And if you don't explain that, they're going to go, "Why did you do that?" Well, this
Right.
house had an updated kitchen, bathroom, had granite here and there. The other comparables were older homes, didn't have any updating. That happens a lot.
So if you give a $25,000 adjustment, they just want to know why.
Want to know why,
Mhm.
and you better be able to explain why. If
Yeah.
it comes down to where'd you get that number from,
Right.
and that's based on just again a paired sales analysis. And
Mhm.
what's really been supporting this is like areas like ever since the flood, there's
Mhm.
been so much data on homes that sold that haven't been updated and homes that sold
Right.
that have been updated.
Right.
Sherwood Forest is a prime example. You had homes back, before the flood, 30, 40-year-old homes that had
Mhm.
Formica countertops, vinyl floors,
Mhm.
and those houses didn't flood. Some of them didn't flood. Now some of them did flood,
Mhm.
and now they have granite.
They're
counter-
renovated.
Yeah.
They're all, and the homes that didn't flood are selling for 150. The ones that have been updated and are selling for 200,000. So
Right.
it's telling you that
So you
people
know
are
what the
paying.
yeah.
We've got a good basis there to show what upgrades
Right.
are, what kind of value upgrades are bringing to the market.
That's interesting.
That is
Yeah.
interesting. So if we get an appraisal as a realtor and it's low,
Okay.
and we want to dispute it,
Mm-hmm.
what does that look like on y'all's end? Because we don't get to talk to you. Does the bank notify you that we're disputing it? And do they give you what we gave them asking for a dispute?
Have you done that?
I have.
I have
Okay.
too.
But I'm not sure what it was like on the
Okay.
back end.
What happened? What did you do?
I went through and provided some comps that weren't used that
Okay.
I thought you helped me.
Okay.
Oh, great. Good
We
news.
went to lunch and I was like, okay, Dad, I got a low appraisal. And I
Okay.
feel like I do feel like it was wrong.
Okay.
And we just went through and we found the comps that I thought should be used. And I explained why some of the comps that were used shouldn't and noted upgrades that weren't given any value.
Mm-hmm.
And it was submitted to the appraiser. I gave it to the lender.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess the lender gave
Lender
it
should
to
have
the
contacted the
appraiser.
appraiser and said you've had a discussion
Disputed, yeah.
dispute on your value, and they want you to consider these sales. Some appraisers are just going to go,
Nope.
Nope.
Then
they're
Yeah.
throw
going
it
to
out
throw
the
it in the
window.
trash and go, I'm not changing anything. Again, I will look at it. If I will look at those comparables, I don't, why didn't I use them to begin with? Got to be a reason. If they're supporting the value and they're in the neighborhood, why wouldn't I have used them to begin with? And if I feel they are justified, I will be the first one to say, yeah, these comparables. I've never had to do that.
You've never.
I've
Right,
never
because
had to change my
This
value.
is the problem. He's a very good appraiser.
No,
I
it's not
know.
that.
So
I have cut sale prices.
We're right.
I have.
Out of every 10 appraisals on average, how many would you say don't meet value? Or is it just
I'd say out of 50, 1 out of 50.
There are appraisers that 1 in 10 don't, and that maybe 2 in 10 don't. There are
Yeah.
appraisers that every time I get them, it's low. Every time, regardless of so it's why I say some appraisers are conservative and
Uh-huh.
some are more.
Well, one of
like-
the questions from our listeners was, do you feel that tight regulations are holding values down, that it's keeping the appraiser from being able to give full value? No.
No, I don't think regulations have really anything to do with it. The regulations aren't in telling you what you can and cannot do,
Right.
what comparables you can and cannot use. The biggest thing that influences values is supply and demand. I mean,
Right.
if you got a oversupply of houses and a low demand, you're going to have declining values. You're going to have low values. If you have a shortage of homes and a high demand, you're going to see higher values.
Mhm.
So it's not really the regulations. Again, I think it's just because the regulations don't dictate how you actually
How high or
select your
low.
appraisers,
Yeah.
Right.
your comparables, things like that. But in your case, did anything come of it? Did it?
I think they increased it $5,000, which
Okay.
we were like 10 off.
Okay. Yeah.
So it helped.
Something.
It helps my seller.
Yeah,
but,
I mean,
yeah.
so.
but I have disputed before where we got nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, and I've had people dispute it,
Mhm.
but I said, you sent me 3 comparable. I'm appraising a house in Terra. You sent me 2 comparables in Jefferson Place.
Right.
I'm
Right.
not going to use
Not
them.
the
Right,
same.
doesn't work.
It
Not
doesn't
the
work.
same thing.
So,
So-
I'll write a narrative
Yeah.
back and say I've looked at the comparables. I didn't feel that they were. I felt the
Right.
comparables that I used were better comparables and better indicators of value for this property, and
Mhm.
therefore no change in value is indicated.
What do you think about pre-listing appraisals? I personally am not a fan of them, but what do you think?
It's not a bad idea. It kind of tells you what an appraiser's opinion of the
Right.
value is going to be. So if he's saying it's worth $300,000, chances are you're not going to get $350 for it.
Right.
You're going to be wasting your time
Fair.
listing
I
it.
guess it could be used if you need a seller.
I think
If
that's
it's
to
a
bring the
unique-
seller back down to earth.
Yeah,
typically.
if it's a unique property
Yeah,
or
I don't do many of them, in fact, because my banks keep me so busy.
Right.
But on the occasion when a realtor does call me, I find it's a very difficult property to price.
Right.
I
It's
know.
just
like maybe a
hard.
very unique house.
Very unique house, and
Yeah.
it's like a house in Broadmoor that somebody was calling about.
Mhm.
It was a custom built house by a guy that owned a brick company.
Oh, right.
And he had,
right.
like-
it was all
Yeah,
arches
it's like a $400,000 house in
Yeah.
Broadmoor, and it
You're like, sorry.
Yeah.
it was. I said no, I'm not going to appraise it.
I decline.
I
No,
don't-
thank you.
Yeah, you just don't need the headache on something like that.
Well, what are some of the challenges that you feel are facing the appraisal industry and what changes are occurring right now?
Oh, I guess the biggest change, there is a lot of, Fannie Mae throws out a lot of stuff that they want you to add to appraisals. They come up with these ideas of new forms, new formats. There's something going on right now that's really going to have to me, a devastating effect on the appraisal industry if it happens, is they're wanting to have this process where the appraiser stays in his office, never leaves his office. A third party goes out and does the inspection on the house, measures the house,
and gives you the
and
information.
gives you the information, and then you do the appraisal based on that.
For what reason?
I'm trying to figure that out. They're thinking it's going to streamline the appraisal process, make things faster.
Oh.
I just don't understand.
This is
it.
being
It's
pushed by
it's
the government?
by the Fannie Mae. It's a pilot program
Wow.
that they're
Hmm.
pushing right now. It's had resistance from every appraiser I've talked to. Said this is insane.
Well, how you
mean,
can't
Yeah,
you just
know,
see it with your own
you
eyes.
have to see it. You have to see it. And I don't know. I hope if it happens. I mean, thank goodness I only have a few more
Right,
years.
you're like, I'm retiring.
Yeah, I'm retiring because
Goodbye, see
I
ya.
am not going to do. I'm not going to do them. I mean,
You just
I
stop.
understand you do have the choice when they send you. And this is really how's it going to speed it up? They send you the information. I understand you have the choice to accept that or go out and look at it yourself.
Oh my
you-
gosh.
So they've just hired an
Yeah, but-
inspector. They
but then-
paid an
Are they?
inspector.
I was gonna say, who pays for that? The
I assume
buyer?
the buyer does.
That's no good.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but they're going to cut the appraisal fee because the appraiser's not
Mhm.
going to. Well, you didn't do the inspection.
Well, you didn't have to go out there.
Yeah, so you cut your fee in half and get half to the inspector.
Mm.
But I would absolutely lose my mind if I couldn't get out of the office and go and look at houses.
Yeah.
Well, that's not what you signed up for.
That's right. So
Well,
it's
kind of ending on that note,
yes.
like you are your own boss.
Uh-huh.
And I was telling Katie, like I can remember growing up, mom is corporate America, always had a corporate job,
Yeah, 8 to 5,
5.
yeah.
I can remember her heels clicking while we were eating dinner. She's walking in the door.
Right.
You were the one that was at the field trips mostly.
Right.
Mhm.
mhm.
And could come to stuff because if you needed to work from 5 a.m. till 7 a.m. or,
Exactly, yeah.
8 p.m. till midnight, you could, whereas mom has to be at work.
Right.
But
Yeah.
what do you I mean, you grew up 3 girls.
Mhm.
You could, I mean, what did hustle look like when all 3 of us were in private school and
Mhm.
you had to make it work?
Well, again, you hustle. You work basically as hard as you have to when you need to. I mean,
Right.
and I needed to a lot back then because
Mhm.
we had a lot of expensive in the private schools. But again, I was able, say, well, you're your own boss, so you can do whatever you want to do. I said, well, I can to a point.
Right.
I still have to get appraisals back to my clients in a timely fashion.
Yeah.
When I get an appraisal order, they give me a due date.
Uh-huh.
They need it back on this day, and if you don't get it back on that day, over and over again, you're going to not be on there
Mhm.
listening. So
Right.
I will get fired. So I do have a boss.
I don't want to get fired.
I do have a boss. I mean,
Yeah,
my
the banks
my clients
and
are my
they can
boss.
kick you
Yeah.
off if you decline too
but
many.
I can, like I say, I can get up at 5. And many a time I would get up at 5 in the morning, work till 9, go on a 3-hour field trip,
Yeah.
come back home, work till midnight again. So you have your own hours,
Right.
And so that's
So
why
you
I was
never had any trouble self-motivating yourself to work.
sometimes it was really tough, getting up and staying
Getting
up to,
going.
going
Yeah.
to work at 5 o'clock in the morning and saying I actually moved my office home to
Mhm.
make it, because I was just paying rent out of an office that I really wasn't using that much, because I was doing a lot of stuff at home
Yeah.
at night, late at night. I said, why am I? So I moved my office home. They said, how can you do that? I mean, it seemed like you would just hang out and watch TV and,
No.
and play. I said, no, but there are times when I just say, I just don't want to go in there. I've been
Yeah.
there for 12 hours. I go have dinner.
Right.
I just don't want to go
Don't
back
wanna
in
go
there for
back.
3 more hours.
I don't want to go back.
And I did it a long time. I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I pretty
Do
much.
you keep your business consistent now?
Much more
So
consistent.
you can turn them away.
Back in the day, I never turned down on a
So your hours are a little bit more fixed.
a little
now.
more fixed, a little more flexible. I don't do the volume of work I
Yeah.
did back then. Of course, fees are higher, so that's good.
Right.
But I still do enough to where.
And you don't go super far away anymore unless you
No,
have
yeah,
to.
You're like in a little bubble.
I gave up some of my long distance. I used to go to St. Francisville all the time.
Oh,
which
right.
It's a hard market. I used to go to Donaldsonville. I used to go to areas that are very hard to appraise in, because
Difficult.
a lot of times when you go to other areas like that, you have to go visit other appraisers to get help.
Oh, wow.
And they really don't like you coming in their territory.
Yeah, just
Right.
don't.
Right.
So I come in,
They're like, what are you doing
yeah,
here?
I need some comparables.
No.
Why didn't they hire me to do it? I say,
Right.
well,
Yeah.
but no, most of them have always been very helpful. But there's enough work. I cover 4 parishes. I cover East Baton Rouge, West Baton Rouge, Livingston, and Ascension.
Mhm.
And
good.
with all those, that's within a 15-mile radius. So it's
You have plenty of work that way.
plenty of work.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, anything else?
No, but like I said, maybe there'll be a part 2 one day.
Yeah,
I'm full of questions for
I
appraisers.
know. We could talk about this all day. Okay.
I think that's it. You have a toast, right?
I do have a toast.
Okay,
and
let's
it's
hear
Okay.
it.
Who would you like to toast to?
This is, I should say, can we toast to somebody that's still not with us? You
Yeah.
said yes.
That's what I heard.
This will be our first one.
I would have to say that my dad,
Uh-huh.
who got me in this business, wasn't for him, Alyssa and I would not be here in the real estate business,
Right.
probably. And he always guided me in the right direction and motivated me to get things done. He
Love
was
it.
always behind me, getting the coursework done.
Yeah.
You need to do this. When he found out I wasn't going to be a lawyer, he was, okay, we're going the appraisal route. This is what you need to do. But anyway, I wanted to toast to him.
Okay,
His name is John Alphin.
John. Okay, what is grandpa name?
Pawpaw.
Pawpaw.
So I'd like
Okay.
to toast to him.
All right, well, cheers.
Cheers to Pawpaw.
Yes, love it.
Okay.
Awesome,
Thank you.
that's it.
That's it.
You
We're
did
good.
it.
Wow.
All done.
Hooray.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Hustle Humbly podcast. Let us know who we should toast to for the next episode.
Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Hustle Humbly Podcast. If you have an episode, topic, or question, please email us at hustlehumblypodcast@gmail.com.
Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. See you next week.
Bye.
This is the good life.